So the first thing we need to know before we can improvise over any song is what key the song is in. And there's a ton of theory behind what chords make up what key, but the general rule of thumb is the first chord that is played is usually going to be the key to the song. Now, when I say usually, it's probably like 90% of the time. There's some instances, which I'll show later in the video, where the first chord is not the key, but usually the first chord is going to be the key. All right, so when I'm trying to figure out the key, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and play a root note of the first chord over the chord progression and see if it kind of fits throughout the chord progression. So I'm going to take a song, for example, like All Along the Watchtower, the Bob Dylan song, but kind of more the way Hendrix recorded it. He played it in C minor. I'm going to do it in D minor, and that'll make sense a little later in the video when we cover the other songs. So the chords are D minor, C, A sharp, C, back to D minor. And the rhythm goes... So if I'm playing along with that, I'm going to try and play the root note, the D, at the 10th fret of the low E or at the 10th fret of the high E over the entire chord progression and see how that sounds. So to my ears, that sounds good. It sounds like it's going to be the key of the song. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt this video, but if you are liking my videos and you're new to guitar and you want to learn the basics, check out my beginner guitar video series on YouTube. Put a link up here. This video series is intended to take you from scratch, like never playing guitar before, up to proficiency with an emphasis on like rock or punk style guitar playing. So that's it, and back to the video. So now I know the song is in D, and it sounds like a rock song. It kind of has that minor feel to it, like it's kind of got some edge to it. It's not like a happy song. Usually minor keys have kind of like a darker, almost like heavier sound. They're very common in rock, and major songs will sound a little bit more happy, a little bit more poppy. So for this one, it sounds like the minor pentatonic scale is going to fit very well over this. And so the minor pentatonic scale is a 5-note scale. It's probably the most popular rock scale that guitarists play. Other than maybe the major scale, you can make an argument the minor pentatonic really should be the first scale that you learn as a guitar player. You're going to use it in so many different applications. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play the D minor pentatonic scale over the chord progression. We're going to play D because the first chord is a D, and it's also a D minor. So that indicates to me that it's going to be in the D minor key. And so we're going to use the minor pentatonic. So the D minor pentatonic, we think the song is in the key of D minor. And so the D minor pentatonic in the easiest position to probably remember, and it's the first position, you will find your root note, the 10th fret of the low E. That's your D. We're going to go 10, 13, 10, 12, 10, 12, 10, 12, 10, 13, 10, 13. So that's your D minor pentatonic in the first position. Now let's try it over the chord progression. So that sounds pretty good to me. Sounds like the song's in D minor, and we're going to have a really good fit here. So just knowing the key and just knowing the D minor pentatonic is not going to make for a great solo, but it's a starting point and a framework to work under. So obviously we're not going to go up and down, back and forth on the scale. We're going to try and add some interest to it, and that's where learning like cool licks comes in, and practicing those over and over again, because your fingers will kind of get that muscle memory. And then once you know the scale, you can kind of add those licks with your own kind of emotions or your own feel within that pattern. So again, the minor pentatonic is going to work really well for rock and blues. So it really is a good idea to learn that scale, especially in the first position at least. And then the other key that you need to know about is the major key. And the way I describe the major key is it's a little happier sounding, it's a little poppier sounding. I think early Beatles when I think about that. So an example would be Twist and Shout by the Beatles, which has the chord progression D, G to A. So that sounds like a happy chord progression to me. And if we try and play the minor pentatonic over it, it's not going to sound great. It's not going to be out of key, but it's not going to sound great. So when I play the D minor pentatonic over that song, which has the first chord of D, it doesn't sound out of key, but it just doesn't sound great. It doesn't sound like it's the right scale to use for that song. And because the song is kind of that happy, poppier sound, it kind of sounds like a major scale to me. So the really cool thing about learning the minor pentatonic scale, so if we have our root note at D at the 10th fret, if we just move down 3 frets, so now our index finger's at the 7th fret, the D major scale has the same form just in this position. So we start with the D minor pentatonic here, and then the D major pentatonic is 3 frets down. Same exact form. This makes it super easy to remember. Another way to remember it is if we take the first 2 notes of this scale, we have our index finger at the 10th fret, our pinky at the 13th fret. If we just move our hands, so our pinky is where our index finger was, so now our pinky's on the 10th fret, index finger's at the 7th fret, we can start our scale right there. So that's another way to remember it if you're having trouble remembering that it's 3 frets down. So now let's try the D major pentatonic over the top of that chord progression. So it sounds like that scale fits way better with that type of song. So I'm guessing the song's in D major. We know the first chord is D. We tried playing the D minor pentatonic over it, and it didn't sound out of key, but it didn't sound great. So we moved to the D major, and it fit pretty nicely. And another note here, you don't have to play the minor pentatonic or the major pentatonic over these songs. I use these examples is because they're very common, they're very easy to remember, and they're great for beginner or intermediate guitar players. But you could use the full major scale, which adds 2 notes to it, or the full minor scale, which adds 2 notes to it, or another great scale is the blues scale. But the great thing about the minor and major pentatonics is those 5 notes that you're playing are also incorporated in those other scales. So if you're playing the 5-note minor pentatonic, those 5 notes make up the minor scale, and then you add 2 notes to play the full scale. Same thing with the major pentatonic. The 5 notes within the major pentatonic make up the major scale, and then you add 2 notes to make up the full major scale. So if you get a good basis with knowing the minor pentatonic, then adding those notes isn't too tricky. So now what do we do in the rare case where the first chord of the song isn't the key that the song's in? And that can happen. A lot of times, in this case, it's the last chord, because what happens in a lot of these cases is the song will start out on the second chord and resolve on the first chord, which is actually played last. So think of it as a loop. You've got chord 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe. It starts on chord 2, goes to chord 3, goes to chord 4, and then goes back to chord 1. But it's kind of like walking into the movie after like the beginning is played. So you walked in on chord 2, they played chord 3, then they played chord 4, and then they started over on chord 1. And that's going to be the key of the song. So a good example of this type of situation is Sweet Home Alabama, which is a D-C-G chord progression. And I know there's a ton of argument online as to whether it's in like D mixolydian or G major. But to my ears, it sounds like G major, and it makes sense that it's G major. So the chords are actually D, C add 9, and G, but just to keep it simple before I just said C. So first we'll try playing the D major scale over it. To my ears, it sounds like we've got kind of that D minor pentatonic situation that we had before, where it doesn't sound out of key, but it doesn't sound great. So now let's try playing the G major scale over it. So again, D major is sounding way better to me than the D major scale, and it kind of has that poppy feel. So I'm guessing it's in a major key. Again, the first chord's D, but the last chord is G. So we tried both of them. G sounded better, and if you look into the theory, the chords and the progression actually is in the scale of G. It's also in the scale of D mixolydian, so you could play that scale over it. But to keep things simple, this is a good example of a chord progression that starts with a D, but it's actually in the key of G. So to recap, when you're getting ready to improvise or jam or work on a solo for a song, the first thing you want to do is figure out the key of the song. And the best way to figure out the key of the song is to take the root note of the first chord and play it through the chord progression and see if it fits over every chord. This will give you a good indication that that's the note that the scale is in. So for example, D. Then we're going to kind of listen to the song. Does it feel happy? Does it feel a little dark or maybe hard rock-ish, metal-ish? If it feels like a little darker, it's probably going to be minor. If it feels a little happy, it's probably going to be major. Then we can take our minor pentatonic scale and try soloing over it in the correct key, for example, D. And if it sounds good, then you can go with that. But if it sounds in tune but not the perfect fit for the song, move your minor pentatonic down 3 frets to the major pentatonic and try that one over. If that one sounds better, you probably have a major key. If none of those tricks work, I usually try the last chord, and most of the time this is going to work. So I'll try the minor pentatonic or the major pentatonic over the last chord and see if those work. If that doesn't work, you're going to need to try the scale for each chord of the song. Now, there are very rare cases where the actual key of the song is not played as a chord in the song, but these cases are exceedingly rare. And usually what you will find playing the major or minor pentatonic of each chord is one of those will work for the song. So I hope you like this video. I hope it helps you a lot. I hope you can put this into application today and get going jamming with your friends or learning a solo or improvising. And remember to like and subscribe. That way you get notified when I post new videos. I post new content like this several times a week. And check out my website, scottobrienguitar.com. I have tabs for hundreds of punk rock and grunge songs up there, as well as my beginner guitar course for $50 for a limited time. And I'll see you guys next time.